An extraordinary warning tonight from Russia to the U.S. against conducting military strikes against Syria.
All eyes are on Syria as the globalists, fearing a populist uprising, are pushing the narrative of World War III on humanity.
I want to be clear to those who try to oppose the United States. I want to be clear to those who wish to do us harm. We'll stop you, and we will beat you harder than you've ever been beaten before. Make no mistake about that. Other countries, Russia, China, Iran, and North Korea went to school on us in hopes of defeating us at some point in the future.
Russia has issued one of its strongest warnings yet against Western intervention in Syria, hinting it may respond with its own missiles. Washington has reportedly been considering limited airstrikes on Assad's forces. The defense ministry in Moscow said such an attack would threaten its troops, who would respond immediately, as they wouldn't have time to work out where incoming rockets or aircraft were coming from. I would recommend that our Washington colleagues carefully consider the possible consequences of implementing such plans. I'd like to remind US strategists that air cover for Russian air bases is provided by S-400 and S-300 air defense systems, whose radius of action could become a surprise for any unidentified flying objects. Washington says its deliberations about possible non-diplomatic options will continue as the Syrian army tightens its grip on Aleppo. Rebels have said they have no plan to evacuate the city, denouncing an amnesty offer by Damascus as a trap. The UN is warning of catastrophe.
By the end of the year, eastern Aleppo could be annihilated. That's the grim assessment from Staffan de Mistura, the UN Special Envoy for Syria.
The bottom line is, in maximum 2 months, 2.5 months, the city of eastern Aleppo at this rate may be totally destroyed. We're talking about old city in particular. And thousands of Syrian civilians, not terrorists, will be killed.
Russian-backed Syrian government forces have ramped up attempts to take back rebel-controlled parts of Aleppo, where the U.S.-backed opposition fights alongside al-Qaeda-linked terrorists. The UN estimates there are about 900 to 1,000 of these terrorists in Aleppo. Syria's president says defeating them is a top priority.
There's no other options. We won't accept that terrorists will take control of any part of Syria, not only Aleppo. This is our mission, and this is our goal, and this is our next step.
Now, could another North Korean nuclear test be on the imminent horizon? It appears it might, as a US-based North Korea monitoring website has spotted activity at multiple areas of the North's Punggye-ri test site. 38 North says satellite imagery taken on October 1st shows movement at all 3 portals. Photos of the North Portal, where the regime conducted its 5th nuclear test on September 9th, show a large vehicle, possibly a truck, near the entrance. Other ports also show a few vehicles and a group of people standing near the entrances, which may indicate ongoing work, but it remains unclear whether such activities are test-related. 38 North says it assumes North Korea could be collecting data on the most recent test, but it could also be linked to preparations for yet another test. There has been speculation Pyongyang could conduct another test to mark the anniversary of the founding of its Workers' Party next Monday.
India says its forces have killed 3 suspected militants who were attempting to raid an army base in Kupwawa district in northern Kashmir. A police official said the 3 men were spotted near the de facto border between India and Pakistan. The incident is the latest in a series of attacks that has raised tensions between the 2 countries and left people living near the disputed region living in fear.
Mounting tensions with possible nuclear outcomes are worldwide. We are sliding into a new Cold War with Russia as Russia ships new anti-missile systems into Syria. This after Russia held a nuclear war exercise of 40 million Russians, mobilizing 200,000 emergency services and soldiers and 50,000 pieces of equipment. Elsewhere, nuclear tensions have risen between Pakistan and India after a jihadi attack on an Indian Air Force base left 19 soldiers dead. India then entered Pakistan and surgically struck terrorist camps in Kashmir. From the point of view of generational dynamics, it is not a question of if, but of when. And with the rapid rise in nationalism on both sides, when may not be too far off. Of course, with all of the saber rattling, North Korea doesn't want to be left out either. Satellite images reveal North Korea is constructing a submarine capable of getting the North Koreans' newly developed ballistic missiles within range of the United States coastline. Breitbart wrote in a speech delivered last month in Tehran and translated this week by the Middle East Media Research Institute, Mohsen Rafidoust, who was minister of the IRGC during the 1980s in the Iran-Iraq War, added that IRGC ground forces are 5 times better than the U.S. Army, saying, despite all the enemy media and cultural propaganda against us, if America wants to try its luck against us, it should know that we are completely capable of mobilizing 9 million fighters. And of course, China, with its ambition to become the world's next superpower, is readying its populace for war against the United States. In a Pew Research poll conducted with Chinese citizens, just under half of the respondents said the U.S. is a major threat, according to the report, marking the highest percentage among the 7 potential threats tested on the survey. The other threats included global economic instability, climate change, cyber attacks, and the Islamic State. World War III is heating up.
20 Iraqi volunteers fighting against Daesh terrorists were killed and at least 5 others were injured in U.S. airstrikes south of Mosul. U.S. fighter jets targeted a building occupied by the pro-government tribal fighters in the district of Qayyara, 60 kilometers south of Mosul. The U.S. Defense Department has released a video of the airstrikes as part of a probe it has pledged to conduct into the offensive. However, Washington is yet to give an official statement about the incident. The American strike on pro-government forces in Qayyara is not the first. Last December, an airstrike carried out by the U.S. military killed over 20 Iraqi soldiers and injured 30 others near Fallujah in the western province of Anbar. Washington blamed the incident on bad weather. In January 2016, U.S. fighter jets targeted Iraq's popular mobilization units based near Speker Air Base in Salahuddin province as well.
These repeated mistakes have raised suspicions and fears among us. The victims who have been killed are Iraqi citizens and fighters. Such incidents are very alarming to us.
A shocking new report from the Pentagon noting the disappearance of 44 Afghan troops right here in the United States who were visiting for military training. It was about 2 years ago when they first arrived. So could these missing individuals potentially pose a threat to national security? Fox News military analyst, retired Lieutenant General Thomas McInerney, joins us now with his take on all this. General, I was talking to somebody about it who said, well, it's just 44 people in a country of 300 million. That's not so bad. To which you say?
Well, I say if they are, in fact, and I don't necessarily think they are, but one of the courses of action, David, is that they could be radical Islamists, ISIS, Taliban, that were specially trained to come in, and 44 of them in this country that, if they're properly trained, could be a major problem.
It's not just the National Security Agency. Now the U.S. Army is dealing with its own internal theft problem. The Department of Justice has accused 8 people of stealing and reselling sensitive Army equipment on eBay. 6 of the suspects are soldiers stationed at Fort Campbell. The stolen items include weapons parts, armor, and medical supplies. The thefts add up to more than $1 million worth of military hardware. This comes right after the DOJ announced charges against an NSA contractor accused of stealing classified documents and government property.
Just 39 days until the election, and some people won't let anything keep them from voting in Virginia. That includes being dead. That's right, the FBI now investigating after more than a dozen dead men and women re-registered to vote in the swing state. Now, all of the forms were submitted by a private group working to register voters on the campus of James Madison University. Unreal.
The view from the air reveals the extent of the destruction wreaked by Hurricane Matthew in Haiti. Hundreds of people are known to have died as the storm sweeps through the Caribbean. It flattened whole neighborhoods in the island nation. In the main city of Jérémie, some 80% of buildings have been destroyed. Most of the casualties came in towns and villages in Haiti's southwest. This man says all the money we had's been lost. Everything's lost. We don't know what to do. We asked for help, but none came. The hurricane blasted the Bahamas on Thursday with winds of 220 kilometers an hour as it headed towards Florida. Forecasters said the storm could be the most powerful to strike in over 100 years.
See this? Melbourne, Daytona Beach, all the way up to Jacksonville. This moves 20 miles to the west, and you and everyone you know are dead. All of you. Because you can't survive it. It's not possible unless you're very, very lucky. And your kids die too.
Martin County Sheriff William Snyder warned that his Florida county will need body bags if people don't get out of town. Top officials in the area are not taking Hurricane Matthew lightly. Governor Rick Scott was blunt in his statement.
There are no excuses. You need to leave. Evacuate, evacuate, evacuate.
Scott activated 3,500 National Guard troops to help with evacuations and prepare for search and rescue operations. President Obama declared a state of emergency in Florida so federal departments could coordinate relief efforts. Many people have already evacuated their homes or prepared them for the storm. Hurricane Matthew has intensified into a Category 4 storm with winds of at least 140 miles per hour.
All right, when disaster strikes, as it is expected to in Florida and elsewhere, the government's always there. FEMA's there. We're going to talk to the FEMA administrators shortly. But, you know, it's not as if we have a lot of money for this thing, putting it quite crassly. We're running a big deficit. We've got almost $20 trillion in debt. And now globally, word is that the whole world is, no pun intended, underwater. 152 trillion in debt.
Sorry, the IMF says the world's reached a record level of debt, $152 trillion. That's more than twice the size of the global economy. Are Europe's banks heading for another crisis? Thousands more job losses are announced as lenders tighten their belts. Been another rough few weeks for Europe's banks. Fears over the financial health of Germany's biggest lender, Deutsche Bank, sparked a sell-off of bank shares. European lenders are struggling to maintain profits as interest rates are at record lows. Faced with lower earnings, banks have been cutting costs, slashing tens of thousands of jobs in the process.
Union protests at the shock announcement from ING. The Dutch lender is cutting 7,000 jobs, around 12% of its workforce, in order to save €900 million a year by 2021. The bank is closing branches and instead focusing its business online.
The customer asking from us more digital when he wants it at any time, anywhere, and on the other hand, more advice and availability of our people. So we transform the bank in a fundamental way to be ready for the future.
The cuts are the heaviest job losses at the firm since the bank was bailed out in 2009. ING's announcement comes a week after Germany's Commerzbank announced 9,000 of its jobs are to go. Spain's Banco Popular has also recently promised to shed up to 3,000, joining Lloyds, UniCredit and Deutsche Bank in a pan-European bloodletting that has picked up steam over the past year. The cuts reflect lower bank profits in general, a situation caused by low interest rates across the Eurozone and tighter financial rules mixed with a sluggish global economy. With the potential for boosting earnings limited by interest rates that are close to zero, reorganizing means cutting more costs. Since the start of 2015, European lenders have cut more than 100,000 jobs worldwide.